So here we have the status board. The left sidebar, we have the toolbar, the patient header, and the status board itself. We'll be using the developmental environment or the dev environment to do our demonstration today. The emergency department, Weill Cornell, is divided into several distinct areas called bays. So we have the A bay, the B bay, the C bay, urgent care, and psychiatry. The status board columns are divided up by location, medical record number, patient name, age, problem, ESI level, length of stay total, status timer, etc., etc. All pretty self-explanatory. So let's set ourselves up as a provider working in area A. I'm going to go ahead and close the sidebar down to give ourselves a little bit more real estate. I'm then going to select the view into the area A. And to make things easier, I'm going to set my user filter maintenance to just display to hide empty locations. Okay, so let's close that down. And let's say we're going to go see our first patient of the day. So as an attending, I will sign myself up. Let's say I'm going to see Miss Hom in area A, room 8. I'll go ahead to the attending column. Double click and assign myself the patient. And now everybody knows that I'm the primary provider taking care of this patient. So my workflow entails looking up certain documents, seeing if there's any orders written, checking vital signs. We'll check vital signs through the flow sheets tab that run across the top of the status board. Let's go ahead and do that. And see what kind of vital signs are documented here. I can go ahead and check the Documents tab to see if the patient has been in this emergency department before. And I'll go ahead and set the chart selection to all available charts and the date range to, let's pick 6 months. And I can see that the patient was here, had a nutrition note in May 15th, an ED trauma flow sheet, and I can go ahead and select and look at those documents. There should be a nursing assessment or a triage note for the patient. Additionally, if the patient's also an ambulatory care patient here at Weill Cornell, there may be a CCD or a clinical continuity document or an EPIC snapshot that may also provide some additional information. So let's go ahead and go back to our status board. And let's say we saw the patient and we want to enter a document for the patient. So there are two ways to do that. One is through the Quick Launch Docs button on the lower part of your screen, or you can use the Enter Document button, which is in the top part of the screen. I can see that there are the quick pick of types of notes that we can write for the patient: procedure notes, disposition notes, attending notes, etc., etc. Let's go ahead and close that down and return to the board. Let's say we want to enter some orders onto the patient. We can click the Enter Order button, which is the quick button to the left of the patient's name. Please try to double check the actual patient is the correct patient. And you can see that the orders automatically open up to the ED order sets. All of the emergency department orders, the order sets will be prefaced by ED. So if you decide to search, you can go through our ED order sets, through the enter order name, and you can see we can enter and select our orders through this window. So let's say we've been working downstairs for quite a bit. We've seen a couple of patients, and we want to check on the status of another patient that I've seen. Let's see about ED test. So I'm going to highlight here. And you can see that the other columns that there are other orders, radiology, EKG, labs, and consults that have appeared on my status board screen. So under radiology, I can see the numbers 0:1. That means there was one radiologic test order, and there are 0 completed. And similarly, under labs, you can see there were 2 lab tests ordered, and there were no lab tests returned. And that little red circle is kind of our indicator lights, and those status lights will turn red, yellow, and green once we have results, the actual test drawn or actual results returned. We can also see that there was an orthopedic consult ordered. We can order things, page consults through our Eclipsys system, and that also gets documented within Eclipsys with times and response times. And we can also see that there's a Dispo Ready column, which I'll demonstrate soon, and a free text comments box, where oftentimes if there's a phone call from a PMD and they want to leave a message for a patient, they can say, I'm coming to PMD Green is coming to see the patient. You can see that call Dr. Smith for Brenda Jones was a comment entered by a provider at some point. So let's take a look at somebody with a Dispo Ready column icons lit up. So I'm going to highlight on JJ Test. You can see that there are 3 icons that have appeared under the Dispo Ready column. This tool is pretty helpful when you're going to discharge a patient. You can see if the required elements and the required documentations have actually been completed. So the H denotes an HIV test offer. All patients in New York State who come to the emergency department are offered, have to have a HIV test offered, whether or not they would like to take it or not. There are certain stipulations, very young, very old, if they're known HIV, if they've also already been offered an HIV test before. The page with the green checkbox is an attending attestation. That means the attending has actually touched the note or actually clicked on the box that said, I have seen the patient and I have completed my note. The green cross is the diagnosis also entered by the attending. That denotes that there's a diagnosis entered for the patient. And the sunglasses represent medication reconciliation. So another requirement of meaningful use, that all patients at any point of their visit, they all have their medications looked at, checked, new ones added, interactions denoted. So a couple of tips for those of you who are unfamiliar with status boards. If you're a provider and you're going to go see a patient, pay attention to the resident and the attending columns. If you're a resident, you want to make sure that there is not another resident signed up for that patient. Use your refresh button. That would be the green circle with the arrows. The status board actually automatically refreshes every couple of minutes, but oftentimes if there's a change and it's before the refresh, that change may not be reflected in the status board. Another common mistake is to check to make sure that you may walk away from your computer and somebody else may log in right behind you. And oftentimes we often think that we're documenting under our own login, but in reality it was the previous person who left that workstation. The dev model doesn't have the user logged in, but you can see that it will be on the production version, the top right corner. It'll show who the user is, and it will actually show which patient is selected. Which brings me to my last troubleshooting point, is oftentimes we highlight a patient. Let's say I am highlighting MLM team and I don't pay attention to my highlight and it drifts onto another patient, or I'm just not paying attention to it and I think I'm ordering on MLM team when in actuality I've selected ZZ Test. So watch your highlights, pay attention to the header. We also have a order verification pop-up that will show some information about the patient. It also makes you time out for about 3 seconds to make sure you've selected the right patient. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoy your time in the emergency department. Obviously this wasn't meant to be a comprehensive review, but just a few helpful tips and tricks.